What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Good to see you all again. Thanks for joining me. I apologize for being off last week, but I am back in the sack this week, and it has been a very, very interesting week. I've done some pretty interesting things too. We're going to talk about that, but I want to start off by saying, which I made the note of in the opening display and put in the comments, I will never direct message you asking for money. I wish I didn't have to say that, but there are frankly evil people out in the world that want to impersonate me. I would be flattered if it wasn't for the victims. But no, I'm not going to message you asking for money. I've always believed that I should make my money from trading, not from doing the other things that most people do. Unfortunately, it seems that some people do decide to take what I do and make money for their personal gain. So if someone messages you, if someone sends you a friend request on Discord, it's not that I don't want to be your friend. I'm just not going to do that. If they do, they are going to be a scammer. And they are, unfortunately, very good at social engineering. I hate to say, but I wanted to say that in the opening here. We're going to talk about stock market, of course, and we've got to follow up on Bitcoin, of course, as well. And I've got kind of a controversial opinion about the duality between those two things. Get to that in just a second. But as always, if you guys have any symbols or instruments, stocks, crypto, whatever to look at, call down in the chat for my plug. I do this every Friday, well, most Fridays. And you can join my community on Discord, where I share thoughts, keep updated with ideas, and it's free. I don't charge a membership. That's the whole point. And also links for the streams on YouTube and TradingView every week. So on the Discord, if you guys want to get in the Just Chatting channel, that's where we talk about the live stream there. And yeah. So yeah, but I do this for you guys. I do this for you guys to generate ideas. Selfishly, the reason I do this is because oftentimes we've had some very good ideas come from this this live stream. With Netflix in particular, there was a trade which unfortunately I had to get out of as it retraced. But there was a spike in July that we were able to capture, and there's been a lot of others that we talked about. And of course, the big thing to talk about this week is going to be Tesla, that 200 level that it hit, which I've been looking at for many, many months and had to wait patiently for it to finally hit. But it looks like we got a couple things in chat. So let's see. What's up, K333999? Had a good week. Yeah, I want to ask about mod. Can't seem to figure it out. Someone asked in Discord a little bit earlier this week, does anybody else think that the stock market is a little bit, or the market, I don't know if they were talking about crypto or the stock market, but they said the market is a little weird. Well, embrace the uncertainty. Solid 100-year-old company, earning beat by 25 cents, but the stock has fallen. Like it's an algorithmic shorting. Any theories? Well, let's break that apart because there's a lot in there. So, first of all, let go of this idea that you're going to understand why price moves. That doesn't mean that we can't use strategies to effectively trade it and make investments. But a lot of times people approach trading or investing from what some would call a fundamental perspective, where they look at balance sheets or they look at the things that people are buying, how well the business is doing, and that worked really well, I suppose, in the '80s, back when Warren Buffett was really making his money, and he's got all his money now. And sure, investing in companies that produce goods and services that people want to buy is very, very good over the long term, but probably I'm going to assume K that you are. I'm going to call you K. That you probably did something just in relation to earnings, and you're in a little bit of confusion. And actually, just taking one quick glance at this chart I can give you some actual answers. So, first of all, the reason I tell people to never trade on earnings is because of what you just experienced. You've just had a very good learning experience in trading, what not to do. A lot of people, they buy something going into earnings, and even if it has a good earnings, the stock won't go up. It's especially problematic when you get an option because in order for you to make any money off that option, you needed the earnings to be amazing and go up more than was expected. The problem is when you buy an option, they're already priced with an expectation of price moving in either direction a certain amount. You also have to realize that I'm looking at a weekly chart here of this instrument, and this has been going up for the better part of this entire year. And trends do end. They just do, unfortunately. And you caught it kind of at the end of the trend. Not only that, but I see a major, major problem that happened a few weeks ago. And there are two things that I trust and talk about in my live stream. These are the two trading methods that I use. That is 50% retracements and false breakouts. And if you people that have watched my stream, you're probably staring at this chart, and hopefully you guys can pick out immediately what I'm talking about. So around the time of October, beginning of October, we had a weekly bar that looks something like this. So this is 3 weeks before earnings. What do you see about this bar? It's as from a very simple candlestick. I'm sure there's a candlestick name or something like that about it, but it basically intra week, let's go down to the daily, came up, spent 2 days above the past high in September, and then by the end of that week closed way down. This is a false breakout, and it's deadly at the end of a trend. I can cite off the top of my head several examples of this, like Lockheed Martin is an example of a defense contractor where it did something very similar back in on a weekly back in April of this year. Again, false breakout, popped up, went back down. Now you see what happens. Microsoft, I think that's a more recent example actually. Yeah, that well, it's actually coming back up, but still, that false breakout is a powerful tool for why you probably didn't do very well in earnings. And of course, our favorite Bitcoin, one of the ways that it was rather obvious to me, and I tried to make people aware that Bitcoin had topped out, was in the false breakouts that it experienced back in October and November of 2021. No one wanted to listen to it at the time because that's when times are good, but that's when you need to be the most on guard in a trend. And so this works across instruments. This works across stocks and crypto. Watch out for that. Watch out for that. Basically, what you want thematically is for people, when they're buying something, to keep on buying it, get a big solid bar over there. But yeah, you're welcome. That's why I like to do this. Thank you for that question, because this provides a living example of what I try to teach on my live streams. This is what I try to give back. Now, within that, just finish up this little analysis right here. The first thing you might want to look at is a pullback to 35.65. That's going to be the halfway point of that trend, basically from the last earnings cycle. But I don't think it's going to go back up to the top anytime soon, because look at how well it held that red line, the Tinkinson, based on Ichimoku. See, I look for 50% holds, and basically on earnings, on earnings, that's how powerful that 50% is too, because look where it popped up to and held at the beginning of that day at the open. So, okay, so if you're having that problem on TradingView, try hitting F5 to refresh the page. I'm hoping that we're not getting that on YouTube, and yeah, Discord is probably doing pretty good. All right, so to the Discord, Mr. Gig, ENPH. I think I actually have some of this. No, this is not the one I have. I have a different one. Energy is down, and this guy is very down. Took a long, small entry. Good luck. This you know what I'm going to say about this. This is in the, as I like to call it, the valley of risk. Now, that does not mean that you you might get lucky and grab it. I don't want to knock on it after you bought it, but I just don't see any particular reason why it should turn here. You know, a recent example. There's some people they like to buy these things as they're kind of going down. One of my friends a few weeks ago, I remember specifically, I got out of Target as Target was breaking the 146.99. Let's call it 147 level. And I remember him buying it down here. This is in May, so this is a while back. Buying it in May. I was not going to knock it because, yeah, I mean, it might work, but was catching a falling knife. I don't. Do we have that emoji? Does No, that's on my Discord. I have that emoji. I don't think that they have the emoji here, but catching a falling knife is the expression. All right. Rather you knock on it. Have sector rotation in mind as we go into winter. Well, we'll take a look at energy here in a little bit. Palantir. I would say that doing covered calls in Palantir. What's the implied volatility right now? I need to let me pull up my Thinkorswim. It's been a while since I have brought up the implied volatility chart. I'm actually not logged in anymore right now. But let me pull that up while I'm talking. Great, thanks. Glad that you guys are working with the refresh of your browser. All right. MAD is another symbol. We'll look at Palantir in just a second when that comes up. MasterCard, that can't be right. MAD as in Mader Group. Is that what it is? That looks a little better. That is a very bullish looking chart. I mean, hold on a second. There we go. On this one, it's anyone's guess. I mean, you're basically buying into a bull trend. I got to admit, I'm not the expert on buying a bull trend because I had some people, some friends of mine that really got into Tesla. They grabbed some Tesla 1 day to expiration or 0 DTs. I can't remember what it was on Thursday as this trend was going up, and now they actually made money. So I'm usually pretty much against buying something when it looks like this. I would prefer to wait for a pullback somewhere around, well, we can go to the all-time bottom versus the all-time high, and a pullback to $4.30 is the only time I would buy it. And I know that seems kind of far off from where it is and what it's done, but let me cite to you basically what I call the trade of the century, which is Amazon this year, and it's now doing well again. Amazon this is a monthly, 3-month chart, whatever you want to call it. To me, when it comes to technical analysis, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the instrument. It doesn't matter the time frame. The patterns that we see are universal. And so from the all-time low back in October of 2001, more than 20 years ago, up until the all-time high of June of 2021, there was a 50% pullback of this entire 2-decade cycle down to 94.46, which we hit at the end of this year, beginning of last year, which was a great time to buy Amazon. And I'm sure that many people, as they sat at the end of 2021, were thinking, well, gee, that's never going to happen. It's Amazon. I'll never get that kind of opportunity. And, well, they did. That abounds. I mean, in the case of Tesla, let me segue into that because I got to talk about that this week. There have been a couple of I don't think that's going to happen sort of events in Tesla's recent last few years' price history. In that in 2020, when it had the big giant bull run, and we got into 2021, nobody thought that they would ever get an opportunity to buy Tesla at a cheaper price. Now, this is before they had the split. By the beginning of this year, it had come all the way down to $100. And then once it had hit $100, people assumed that, oh, well, it's going on a rocket. We're not going to be able to catch it. I'm not going to be able to, sorry, I'm not going to be able to grab it ever again unless I buy it now at 200. And I urge caution for people. Put my money where my mouth is and grabbed a little bit of Tesla as a trade at 160, the 50% retracement of the January through March trend. Now, that was just a trade, but I actually became a Tesla owner in June of this year. I really appreciate Elon. I like Teslas. I knew I always wanted one, but it never clicked for me that, wow, Teslas are actually amazing machines in that I press a button, I tell it where to go, and it can drive me there. Really. It derps out a little bit, but not in a way that scares me. It derps out in overly cautious ways, like getting to a stop sign and inching up and taking too long that a human wouldn't. Things like that, or not merging aggressively, Mad Max enough. I mean, these are the problems that it has, but it doesn't like whip over and hit a pedestrian. In fact, I was driving on a desert road immediately after I got it somewhere out in Texas back in July, and there was a highway worker that was laying out cones. He wasn't in the road, but he was close to the road, driving about 70 miles per hour on this empty road, and Tesla detects the person getting a little too close. Way hard emergency braking to service that, to just make that pedestrian safer at the cost of some brakes to me. I have my thoughts about that. But regardless, I found out how good Teslas were. And so about July, I realized that I wanted to own a lot more Tesla. But unfortunately for me, price continued going up. And I'm just not one to buy something that has gone up a bunch. I am cheap, but I just have trained myself to not fall victim to FOMO. And so I've been waiting for all this time since July for Tesla 200 because it's the 50% retracement of the whole move for this year. I waited a very long time. I even had to sit here and watch these dips it made in August and September as Tesla and the stock market began rallying, go off and potentially leave me. But the point is to wait. I made a pretty sizable investment in Tesla this week because I do believe in it. I'm a little bit of a Tesla maxi, like you might find in certain Bitcoin circles. Let's talk about Bitcoin. Let's talk about that. And again, if you guys are just joining, if you have symbols, if you have things to look at, post in the chat. That's why I'm here. I'm here to talk. I'm here to teach. And I'm here to generate ideas for myself and everyone else. So get them in the chat. I'm going to talk about Bitcoin for a little bit, and then we'll go through those. Our friend, my friend, Bitcoin. Now, if you start reading the news this week, you're not going to find a lack of bullish projections. You're just not, because price has been going up. There is no greater advertisement than a rising price. And it is very, I can't really put a word to the emotion how I feel when I read and see so many people posting bullish projections, reasons to buy, when Bitcoin is up multiple percents in the last few weeks, multiple percents in the year, especially when I myself have been very diligent. Let's see, let me find my list right here. I've been very diligent about keeping track of Bitcoin for anyone that wants to or cares to follow. The problem is, I don't actually go and speak at conferences. Hold on, not that. I used to use Bitfinex. There we go. I don't actually go and speak at conferences, and I don't go on podcast. I don't I don't speak to really anyone outside you guys with this little small live stream that I do, and this little Discord that I run. And unfortunately, in the modern day of media, people with 100,000 followers that get that way by telling people what they want to hear are far more influential than someone that wants to maintain just a small bit of uh, reach, but nonetheless try to be true. And January of this year, as Bitcoin followed precisely a rule that I have about using Ichimoku, the Ichimoku cloud, to follow trends in Bitcoin or anything else. When it broke out in January, no one really particularly cared to publish bullish messages or bullish articles about why it's a good idea to buy Bitcoin down around 18,000 after it not only bottomed but confirmed it. And then in March of this year, when we had all this banking FUD, and not only the stock market dropped, but Bitcoin as a risk asset dropped, and you have a big red bar down to a 50% level. Again, no one's publishing any bullish news about it. No one's publishing these projections of Bitcoin going to six figures or Bitcoin going to 250,000, the kind of thing that makes other people buy Bitcoin that people are buying now or have bought a little bit earlier, trying to lift their own bags. But now all the bullish people come out, oh, now there's a good reason to buy. Well, it's not. You know, I usually hedge. I usually hedge my words. I usually say it. No. This is a classic case of buy the rumor, sell the news. There is an ETF going to be filed. Now, why an ETF is good for Bitcoin, no one can really tell me. Well, they'll tell me it's good for the price. Is that the point of Bitcoin? Is the point of Bitcoin to make everyone personally wealthy that bought it at some prior price? Well, that's what a lot of people seem to think. How is Bitcoin, a decentralized monetary system, benefited by BlackRock, the largest investment company in the world, taking over a large stake in it? How does that help the ethos? Well, that's gone out the window, hasn't it? We don't really care about having a tool for human freedom outside of government and corporate control, do we? It's fine if government regulates it and corporations control it, as long as we get rich, right? Right? No, screw you. You're ruining it for everyone. Buy the rumor, sell the news has existed as long as markets have been around. And every time there's a little bit of bullish Bitcoin ETF news, we've got a little pop in here. It's setting up for a classic example of this. Now, that being said, I have to be objective. And while I was short, and I was very open about this on my live stream, on my chats, I was short from the 50% retracement of the March high down to the November low. It hit perfectly back in July when, again, this ETF news was coming about, and I entered short, was able to take some profit on the 50% retracement down to 25 where it held, and then I was very open and honest, and much to the chagrin of all the permabulls, that I closed the short as it began to rise. Why? Because, again, the same reason that I went long and told everyone to go long in January, the condition of price above cloud Momentum coming out of cloud was the same as it was back in January. Trend. But by that same token, I'm now waiting on the weekly. Price is out of the cloud. Momentum is close, but not quite yet. And so, minus my feelings, minus my opinions, objectively, if I'm following my rules, I wait. And if these conditions are met, if the momentum does indeed get out, then I call Bitcoin bullish on the weekly. I'll have to do it. Because if there's one thing that can mess up your trading is feelings, emotions. And while I'm very sad about the progress I've seen in the last over a decade with Bitcoin as it becomes more regulated, I have to admit that it has a tendency to do some crazy stuff. And while I highly doubt that this close to a 70% drawdown, things are going to be fine, as lots of Bitcoin holders believe right now, I don't think they're going to be fine that close. It's just not in the patterns of human behavior, and it's not in the patterns of Bitcoin either. And having lived through these events, the two that stand out in my mind are after the after the 2017 rally, we had something very similar, which is within a short time, a little rally in 2019, which no one thought when it was making this run up, everyone thought the same thing. Oh, well, things are fine now. We're going to hit that all-time high. Well, got down to 4,000 again on COVID, a major economic event. We had another example of that earlier this year, again, as I cited, with the banking FUD. A lot of people say Bitcoin rose on the banking FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. No, Bitcoin dropped on it, and then it rose after it. Just like Bitcoin dropped on COVID and then raised after it. So all these people that tell you need to buy Bitcoin for this looming financial apocalypse, they're objectively incorrect. You buy it upon it when everything is going down. And then you'll get the benefit of a V-shaped bottom. But don't buy it now. The people that want you to buy it now already bought their Bitcoin, and they want you to make them rich. There's a word for that, but it's not quite accurate. Starts with a P, ends with an Onzi. But it's not really that. It's something different. Pyramid, maybe. Unfortunately, that's what it's become, because people think they're going to buy a little bit of Bitcoin, go on Twitter, and then meme themselves into the world's next uber rich. I've spent a lot of time thinking about these theories, and it's not apparent to me why buying a thing, holding on to it, and producing nothing with it will actually generate wealth. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing the point of Bitcoin. Maybe I don't get it. Maybe I need to read some more books that people have written on the topic rather than draw upon my own decade of experience. But one thing I said privately to my friends on Tuesday of this week, again, talking my book as Michael Saylor would talk his, I think that this week was a great week to rotate from Bitcoin into stocks, specifically rotate from Bitcoin into Tesla. Or, as I've maintained since 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, at the start of the recent unpleasant conflict, again, already got it kind of knocked off right here with the defense contractor portfolio. RTX specifically held on this week, multiple weeks, the 50% level, and it's up again. RTX, Raytheon. If you don't want to invest in defense contractors, that's fine. But remember, 2 weeks ago, Bitcoin was up and conflict broke out. I think a rotation was in order. Things don't last forever. But that's how I really feel. But you know what? Hashtag not financial advice. In fact, I spent a lot of time thinking about this as I'm ranting about it. Thanks for listening. Maybe people shouldn't listen. Maybe people should make their own decisions, because what happens is if I happen to be wrong, I don't really think I will be, then, people would have been silly to have listened to some guy on the internet tell them what to do. But I got to speak my mind, or else I'm not going to feel good. I'm just not. So, all right, let's check the chats. All right, so sorry, I got to go back to that TLT. So TLT was a trade that I cited earlier in the year as a potential trade of the year. I was wrong. It happens. Less than not, but it does happen. And so I had to exit TLT when it broke this low that it set up in October. I had a well thought out plan that the Fed was basically going to do as they said they were going to do. Things changed in the year. And really, things changed in people's perceptions of what interest rates are going to do versus what I think they're actually going to do. I don't think the Fed is going to need or want to raise interest rates anymore, but we had two CPI prints in, I think, starting in either August or September, probably September, that were a little bit higher than going down. In other words, traders and the Fed are looking for inflation to come down, and then they can bring interest rates down, which implies that with low interest rates, we can go back to the happy times of 0% interest rates, people throwing printed money into assets and asset prices going up, which unfortunately hurts the price of bonds, because older bonds with lower interest rates are worth less than higher bonds with higher interest rates. That's a very simple way to put it. And so TLT as a technical trade off of a 15-year low just didn't work out. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not going to find support down here at 82.20, which it hit, which was a low that it set back in 2007. I think that if you're just getting into a trade, well, it didn't quite hit that. If you're just getting into a trade with TLT, I think you might be better off than if you bought it earlier in the year. What I would look for in TLT, now that I'm looking at it, thanks for bringing it up to me, is see if this little rally we've had over the last few weeks of October actually comes down, finds a 50% support, short-term 50% report throughout the month of November, and then begins to rise. That's worth a trade. It is. Because you're coming up to major, major lows on this instrument. I think it is worth a trade. I think it still is worth trying to play a bottom. You're still catching a knife, but you got better reason to now. So, all right. Let's see. Jen, you just putted Roku and Apple. All right. Apple's been kind of interesting because it used to be the market. When Apple moved, SPY moved. I've already got this, looks like I've got this marked off from a few weeks ago, but yeah, I would be looking for this to make its way down to 161.20. How far out did you go on that put? Jen? Next week. Oh. Do I need to get a soundboard with... I sigh audibly. Well, at least you bought the put into a rally. 172. I don't even, this doesn't even, 172 doesn't even show up unless I zoom in my chart. Anyway, I think much, much bigger and long term. Anyway, Apple is, it's not, the problem with Apple right now for me trying to short it is this doesn't qualify as a false breakout. Unless, can we even go to if we go to a quarterly, then we can maybe find a reason why it's a false breakout, but I don't think so. I never have to go up to a 3-month chart to try to justify it. Usually, in fact, I might need to quantify this in a rule that a weekly chart false breakout is what you want to look for. And the weekly spent a good little bit of time trying to test higher levels on Apple before it started doing this pullback. So I can't be long-term bearish on Apple. Uh, Not just because it's been one of the most bullish things in history, but because the technicals just don't really justify it. Nicholas asks, thanks. Looking at the yields, do you see anything different? Um, well, it depends on what yields you're talking about. I think if you are a person that has savings, you can get 5% on just putting money into certain accounts, savings accounts. You got to look a little bit, but you can definitely find it, no strings attached. So yields for consumers are quite good. As far as what yields are going to do in the market, again, it kind of goes back to why TLT is doing poorly. Yields, as far as they are traded, are speculative. In other words, they're what people perceive into the future, and those can be wrong. So if you look at yields, most people are forward looking, and honestly, I gotta be honest. I'll be honest with you. The whole yield curve and what it means is a little bit above the stuff my pay grade, the stuff that I look at. But broadly speaking, I try to presume that people are wrong. I'm a contrarian. And so if I've heard a lot of talk about how actually I've heard it both ways. I've heard talk about people think that yields are going to go up. They have to because the Fed's going to lose control of inflation, and yields are going to go down because the Fed's not going to be able to pay off the United States debt, and the United States is going to default. So I've heard arguments for why both are guaranteed to happen, and so TLDR, I don't know. I really don't. I think that having a 5% savings rate is a little high historically, and yields being 5% for, I guess, maybe what's the symbols for the yields? I think I need to add this to my um, symbols to remember. What's this? ZB is bond futures, but what about yields? See, 10-year yields, because it is good to kind of know. And I don't, maybe I can actually look at a chart and just apply what I think about that. It says, okay, so U.S. 10-year, right, yeah, around 5%, basically. Looks like I have checked on this before. Let's see how much history we can look at here. Oh, that's a lot. I'm hesitant to do this, but were I to just be me and look at anything else, I would say that 10-year yields 8%. Let's do this. Let's go through yields since you asked. I think you know what, it behooves me to pay attention to these. I'm neglecting them. U.S. 2-year yields. Oh, 2-year. Okay. So we'll do it the 2. I'm going to add these to my list and we can keep track of them during the live streams. 30-year. Oh. US 30Y. We'll put the put the 5-year in there too. I love TradingView. It's got everything I need. I don't know why people still use Bloomberg terminals. I'm curious why. I guess they don't have the data for that, but a 10-year and 30-year. Well, if I were to just use the same logic I use when looking at anything else that trades, thank you. It looks like we actually could go higher. I think there's half the people out there that would tell you that that's most likely. It's good to watch. Good to watch. I mean, the same thing I have used to get some insight into what the dollar will do by looking at DXY. DXY, of course, holding that 102 level This is a monthly chart of DXY, the dollar index. So again, the 50% retracement of the whole 2021 down to move, 102, which also matches up with the highs in the late teens, which is mostly driven by Euro USD, which 109, yes, 109 was that same level, though inverse. And so it doesn't matter what it is. The first thing I'm going to look at is 50% retracements. And so since you asked, yields can go higher. That's my answer. That's my answer to that. All right, let's see. Got a couple more symbols to look at from Katerina. ANF. Looking for the reversal to short. Your opinion would be helpful. Helpful is what you're looking for there. So, again, as you may have caught at the beginning, I look for false breakouts. That is my opportunity to short. Really quickly looking at this chart, this bar right here, not quite one I probably would have taken, but it's a good example. This is a weekly, actually this is a monthly chart. Okay, let's see if the weekly was a little bit clearer. I just, this is Abercrombie and Fitch. I don't see a reason to short it yet. I would wait until it tests a major high. Then you might have a reason to. So, has a good bit of time to go. I would actually just look for different things to short. AMD. AMD, I definitely have an opinion about. Let's see if it is playing out. Over the last few weeks, people have asked about AMD. The problem with AMD is that the 110 level that I have marked off right there, as you see, I've already kind of gotten it annotated. Basically, what I'm looking at here is price coming down below this level, breaking below it, and then coming back and then finding that as a resistance. That being said, we have a close above it this week. So what I would like to see here is get a little bit of action up here, maybe pull back to it, or maybe potentially go up and break this level here. But AMD is in a very trying time. You're basically making a guess as to what it's going to do at this level. So unless you're long from a much lower level, I would be patient on this one. And Apple, we talked about that earlier. All right, let's see. Oh, I just mentioned DXY. So dollar index, well, what you have here is, look at that nice hold there. So again, 106 on the DXY is the level. So let's just start over here. I like to start over a nice clean chart. So again, the level that we held on a monthly has been the 102 level. 102 has been the level to hold there. And now, as we go into this pop off that level, what it has done is even more clearly held that 50% again from the top side of 107. In fact, yeah. So now it is in a short-term bearish trend. So we're gonna do fractals here. We're gonna keep on going down from the highest 50% to the weekly 50% down to the daily 50%. And I would say that now what you'd be looking for is DXY to come down and potentially find some support around 104. Basically, it just looks, it wants to hang around at this level right here. So be watching for that. Let's see. More questions. All right. AMD is partnering with Qualcomm and Samsung on some Fidelity FX stuff and other related visual AI aiding tech. Well, I know one thing. If you put AI into an earnings report or a press release, it makes your stock go up. So that's a good thing. That's bullish. I miss, Satchel said, I miss what you said about not buying BCC now but waiting. I think the bulls are generally thinking 48K before downside. Have you talked about this anywhere else this might be recorded? I do my live streams every week, and I don't really index them. I don't really. The market is a living thing, and so the ideas change. But if you go back and you look at my trading view history, you'll see that not only this year I've cited when to buy. I also cited in October and November of 2021 that the top was in, and then I was talking about it for basically the last since I joined TradingView back in 2013, and so what people are saying is most often wrong. And that's because people form themselves into little echo chambers. They want to hear what they want to hear. And so the people that are buying it now or saying it's going to go to 48K now have a vested interest in it doing just that. They want a little more upside. They're probably skeptical, as I am, that this is actually going to be a retest of the all-time high. I would say that the minority of extremely over bullish Bitcoin maxis, the ones that put all their savings into it, they are the ones that are going to be the most likely to tell you that if you sell Bitcoin, you are the biggest fool the world has ever seen. It is going to take over the financial system. It is not readily apparent how it's going to do that, given that it costs about $2 per transaction. Now, well, they'll tell you Lightning Network, but the problem with the Lightning Network is you have to basically read a book in order to actually use it. And so how this is going to replace Venmo, again, they tell me because Bitcoin is better because it is not printed by the government. It is outside of the government's ability to print. And then when I ask, well, how is it going to be allowed by the government to take over if the government really, really operates on printing money? And they tell me, well, the government can't ban it. And then I'm like, well, China did. And, about 100 years ago, the United States government confiscated people's gold. So again, tell me how the government can't do that. And they're like, well, they just can't. Again, the whole Bitcoin maxi philosophy breaks down in contradictions. But back to the price. 48K is, in my analysis, probably closer to the 42K, which would be the 50% retracement from the all-time high down to the November low. So 48K, I think people are using a very simple high right here at March. To answer your question specifically, they're saying that because that is the most optimistic, pessimistic thing that they can say. In that they are pessimistic that Bitcoin is going to get up to that level and break it, because that seems very unlikely given that this run was predicated and existed within a zero interest rate environment where people, not just Michael Saylor, but everyone else, were taking out loans to buy Bitcoin, pumping up the price. So a lot of people are reasonable to assume that, well, we live in a different market than that. So I don't think that valuation is going to come again, not this close to it. And so technically speaking, that 48K is the high before things got really bad. On a more esoteric level, that makes a lot of sense, is probably the level where people bought it. Most people that you read on the internet, most people that you hear their opinions about on Reddit, probably bought it somewhere in here. Maybe if they felt like they were particularly clever, they bought it on the pullback in the summer of 2021. And so for it to get up to 48K is more of a, I've been really in pain for a long time. I just want to get out at break even sort of mantra, which you'll find that a lot of people fall into when they're new to this whole trading and investing thing. And I think that that is a very bad style of investing, because if you let investments go down to minus 80%, 90% of what you put in on your losers, and then you take profit at break even on your winners, then that is not a winning strategy. And so that whole mindset of getting out at break even is just quantifiably wrong, but people feel the way nonetheless. What I think, I'll go ahead and post my levels here. So the levels of resistance of Bitcoin, should it continue, I believe that your 48K is a possible level, but the ones you want to look at first are going to be these. So we have to consider the 50% level from the COVID low all the way to the all-time high, which was, in fact, a major point that it reached in January of 2022 when all this unpleasantness began. And we're very, very close to that. Let's call that 36K. I am looking for, on the ETF, that one last little pop. That one last little pop, probably to that 36, possibly, maybe to the 32, and then we'll get to sell the rumor. Now, that's all going to change, and I have a sort of a Boolean if then. Keep posted, but don't think that you need to go buy Bitcoin right now for many reasons that I've described. Number one, if there is to be a big bullish trend to six figures, you're not going to miss it. When Bitcoin went on its giant meteoric rise last year, this is a weekly chart. You had ample weeks, 1, 2, 3, dozens of weeks to grab it, even in this super bullishness, to grab Bitcoin before it finally popped off. You'll have plenty of opportunity to still benefit from it. But right now, the risk is just greater than the reward. In other words, if you buy it at 34,000 and it goes to 48,000, yeah, you make 12K. But what happens if it halves from there over the next couple of months? The risk is just too great. And so do as you feel, do as your analysis tells you that you should, but listening to other people, including assholes that have small niche live streams every Friday at 4 p.m., links are below. Yeah, you got to take them with a grain of salt. That's the thing, man. You got to do what you think is best. And I can tell you what I think is true, and I can show you how I've been right, but I'm just as good as my last trade. I'm just as good as my last call. And like I said with TLT earlier, it wasn't correct, but it was small, relatively. I think a lot of people get into Bitcoin thinking that they must because of the looming collapse of the dollar. But as I've cited and shown, I don't have to cite it, it's in the price. Bitcoin will fall. It will fall quickly when we get a major economic scare, like a big true bear market, just like we had in the whole year of 2022 is the example of what Bitcoin will do in a bear market. Bitcoin's gains relative to the stock market are a product of volatility, not because of Bitcoin being better in some esoteric way. I mean, just for example, when the stock market in March of this year had all that banking FUD, as we recall. You remember that when the dollar was finally going to fail and the Ron Paul was up there, it's happening, as they always post when something like this happens. Stock market was down from the high in February to the low in March, 9%. Bitcoin on that same news, on that same event, was down 22%. Now, granted, Bitcoin from the March low is up 83%, and SPY is up from that March low only 14%. But it's all relative to how each thing moves. With it has wider ranges. Bigger losses on Bitcoin, bigger gains. Same effect. And so let me bring that back. The best time to buy Bitcoin is not going to be when everyone thinks it's bullish. The best time to buy Bitcoin, like anything else, is when everyone is bearish. It's just that simple, and it's just that hard. You can buy it now. You can get a little pump up. You can get lucky. But I don't think it's really going to build the habit that's going to be necessary to make good, really solid good choices. And the really solid good choices for investing and trading are going to be the uncomfortable ones. Whenever I put on a trade and it ends up working out, I'm always uncomfortable. I used to think that that would get better as I got more experience, but I've come to just kind of embrace it. Tesla this week, which I made a very sizable investment in on Tuesday, I procrastinated. I paced around the house. I watched YouTube. I just waited. I missed buying it at 197 that day, which was a very good technical setup. In other words, I've been waiting for months, ignoring these dips. Just I'm waiting for my opportunity. I said I'm going to wait for 200. I'm going to wait for 200. Even though there was ample reason for me to get frustrated with it, I waited patiently. And then even on the day of when, we had this little small false breakout here on Tuesday, and then it pulled back to about 197 there around 11:30 in the morning. I sat there and I was like, I'm not like a Zen master. I'm just like you guys. I have feelings too. If you prick me, I bleed. But I did it in the afternoon at about $202 a share. But it was still uncomfortable. The problem with buying Bitcoin now is that there's too many people that you can read and you can find telling you it's going to be fine, telling you it's going to be a great decision, telling you what you want to hear. It's comfortable. It feels good. But that's not when good buys are made. It's just not. It's just not. Never is. You can get rewarded for that, but I guarantee you, if you keep doing that, if you keep buying stuff based on what people are saying, you're going to lose a lot of money. On the topic of Tesla, or the topic of EVs, I'm not sure if you were trading during that time, just 2 years ago, but do you remember when electric vehicles were all the rage? Back in 2021, it's fine, man. It's fine. You're learning. But just think about, I'm cursed with sort of a bad memory because I follow this. I listen to people. I read everything, and I see the same mistakes year after year. I've been doing this for a decade now, and what I even before that, I bought my first Bitcoin at $20. Okay, I saw it go down to $1.94. Okay, I mean now it's kind of like, oh, so great. No, percentages matter. So I've seen some stuff, and then Tilray. This was the greatest thing ever in 2017, 2018. Pot stocks, weed was the thing. And everybody had to be in these pot stocks. They were just, oh my God, everybody's going to be high. And, that's going to be great because we're going to be so productive because the whole world is going to be stoned because it's legal, and these companies are going to make tons of money, even though it's going to be taxed all to hell, just like alcohol, and it's going to be an incredible cutthroat industry. That was that was a logical step that someone could have made at the time. That yes, there's companies that are going to produce these products which are not addictive, but people really desire them. There's a high margin on them now because it is illegal, and all these companies are just going to be so incredibly profitable because it's just going to be the same. It's not that they're going to be cutthroat competition for government licenses, which are going to be doled out to people with connections in government. No, it's just everything's going to be fine. So let's buy these pot stocks because reasons. And everyone bought into that, and everyone talked about how great they were, and everyone was a genius there for a few weeks, and then they were not. EV, same thing. Biden gets elected. He's a Democrat. Democrats love renewable energies. They're going to ban gas cars. Well, let's buy everything EV. I sit back and I watch these mistakes happen, and no one's going to listen to me because it feels good at the time. There's plenty of people out there making YouTube videos. There's plenty of people making tweets that you can read and you can feel good, especially when it starts going down. Diamond hands. It's retarded. But feels good at the time. And I don't even have to show all the altcoins out there. I will show Monero, though, which has been a surprisingly stable store of value all this time. Same thing with Ethereum. And, of course, Bitcoin is getting that little ETF bump. Notice these are the only 3 cryptocurrencies I keep on my watch list. I used to try to keep up with others, but So keep doing your own research, and just now that you've kind of seen the way things are with what people are saying, just it'll help. You'll get it. You'll start to get it after a while if you, I hate to say it, but if you develop a little bit of cynicism. Don't be cynical about everything, but be cynical about what people are saying and why they say it. Understand that their opinions are going to be based on their holdings. I'm not immune from that. But I also think that Tesla is a fantastic company, and the biggest problem facing Tesla right now is the fact that so many car companies are wanting to license their charging network, which is already so widespread and dominant that might have a hard time using it because so many other car companies are paying Tesla to use it. That's the thing I'm concerned about with Tesla right now, is that they're going to be too successful. That's because I'm an elitist, a Tesla elitist. If you don't have a Tesla, why do you even have an EV? You still have to drive the car. Why would you do that? Why would you drive a car? Let's go buy a horse. Anyway, let's finish up. If you got things to look at, symbols, get them in. I'm past the hour. Thanks for carrying me through and giving me things to pontificate about. But I'm here until the end. If you guys got things to look at. All right, look up NEO. Ask your viewers for a non-KYC exchange. That's my KYC stands for Know Your Customer. And I got to say, I'm not really going to be able to do much more with crypto in the future except buy and hold for that reason. It's a sad time. That's one of the reasons I've become a little more despondent about crypto, is because basically all the on-ramps to it being an alternative financial system have been closed the world over. It's just a financial vehicle for trading and personal wealth generation. That's all it is right now. It's all it had a chance about a decade ago. Yes, a decade ago. It was about the time when I don't want to get into politics. Just understand crypto for what it is. It is a financial vehicle, it's a speculative instrument, it is a risk asset. You buy it when everything else is down, you sell it when everything is good, and you walk on and you go buy a cheeseburger with the profits. You don't buy into this whole mantra that people are selling that it's going to change the world, because it's already become heavily regulated, and any chance of doing that has been and will be stamped out in favor of the existing financial order. I don't want to admit that, but I believe that's true. Anyway, all right. Let's end on a high note. Let's look through some stuff. Did you look at oil, Norrock? Okay, let's see here. Symbols to remember. I like to use WTI. I am going to presume that oil is bullish because we still need energy, and despite the financial media's publishings over the last few weeks, as the stock market has been correcting, the economy is actually doing pretty good, especially in America, generally the world over. Two major conflicts going on in the world, and well, they need oil to fight them. And there's really nothing going on outside of them that's that bad. The economy is not really slowing down that much. In fact, one of the reasons that the Fed has not lowered interest rates is because the economy, GDP, continues to grow. And the economy needs energy. It needs oil. And so I've been watching for the better part of this year for oil to hold, depending on what instrument you're looking at. This 67 level on WTI, on CL with a little bit of an adjustment, somewhere around, the 67 level. And so that has been the level long term that I consider oil to be bullish. And from that point, I will presume it to go up like any trend and retest the high. Now, this is a weekly chart. That can take a long time, a year to play out, but the next resistance that I would not be looking for would be somewhere around, well, actually, did it hit it? I think it actually almost, or did, depending on the instrument you're looking at, yeah. Generally speaking, oil bullish. Oil still bullish. Intra-week, intra-month, things could change. CVX. So my personal holding for oil companies is not CVX. CVX is good, but let me point you to ExxonMobil, which continues to be a winner. It's a little bit it's more relative. Notice this little annotation I had right here. Sometimes when people tell me or ask me like, "Oh, I don't want to get into this. I'm too late to the," I have to, again, I speak from my own personal emotions, trying to relate that back in January of 2021, remember when EV was the thing, dirty energy, oil companies were dog crap. If you read financial media, they told you to sell all your oil companies, get out of energy. It's the dinosaur. It's going by the wayside. At the time, it was on everyone's lips. It was on Ray Dalio's lip, the genius billionaire of Bridgewater. Everyone was talking about get out of energy, get out of energy. It's a horrible investment. Buy EV. So wrong. People were wrong. But I heard it, I read it, it can't not affect me. So when I bought ExxonMobil about $47.50, I thought to myself, why does no one else see this? And oh damn, I should have bought it back in November when it was at a low, at a double bottom. Oh my God, I'm too late to buy ExxonMobil. And everyone tells me it's a horrible thing to do. This goes back to your point, Satsurin, about what people are saying. When I bought into ExxonMobil, I questioned myself. I questioned my sanity. I gaslighted myself because everyone told me that buying energy stocks in January or quarter one of 2021 was a horrible idea. Don't do it. They're all going to go bankrupt because apparently we no longer need oil. Now, in hindsight, or even in present sight at the time, did that make sense? Were gas stations closing in record numbers? Were nuclear power plants springing up like wildflowers across every single country? Were giant wind farms popping up in your backyard? Was it apparent that we were moving away from fossil fuels in any way in that month, in that time? No, but everyone on the internet and financial media said so. People are generally wrong. Hi from Switzerland. I like Switzerland. Switzerland's a cool country. They're a very cool financial system historically. The Swiss franc is a very interesting currency in how it is maintained. If you guys don't know, and I don't know that much about it, but the Swiss franc is maintained by operating as if it were a hedge fund. One of the things that people ask, like, what backs the U.S. dollar? Well, our aircraft carriers. Well, what backs the Swiss franc? People should ask. Why is it so ridiculously, historically strong? They have a lot of gold. They don't really disclose, but do you know that one of the largest holdings they have that backs their currency is shares of Amazon stock? That's right. The Swiss National Bank uses not only gold, but also stocks and bonds, assets, to back their currency. The Swiss National Bank operates as if it were a little bit of a hedge fund. So I find the Swiss to be fascinatingly intelligent people. And they're all armed to the teeth in the mountains. I'm a country boy from, rural America, Appalachia over here, these mountains, and so I can't help but appreciate that life. If I was a European, I hope I'd be born Swiss, really and truly. All right, what else we got here? Can you speak to the ETF and 2024 2025 general price targets? Well, I think I did cover that. The ETF of Bitcoin is on everyone's lips because it is the most obvious. It's the most obvious event that's going to happen. But let me ask you something, young newbie. Let me ask you a thought question. I'm going to end it here. Hold on. Did you post anything else? What was the screenshot for? Anyway, what was the screenshot for, Jen? Oh, okay. All right. So let me end it on this note. Let's really think about what moves the price of things. Let's do a thought experiment here. Everyone's buying, and Bitcoin is responding to ETF news. Everyone's it's going up on, ETF, because ETF mean price go higher. So once the ETF launches, okay, think about it this way: ETF launches day after. Why are people going to buy it? Bitcoin. Why are people going to buy Bitcoin? Why are people going to buy Bitcoin after the ETF is bought? Think about it. What is the answer to that question? It's an open-ended question. Here's what I think about it. There's a couple of things. Number one, the presumption is that the ETF is going to lead to more people buying Bitcoin because they're apparently boomers that couldn't figure out Bitcoin, but they want Bitcoin exposure. Okay, so have you tried explaining Bitcoin and why they should buy it to an actual boomer? Someone over the age of 55 or retiree, someone that's very concerned about preserving the wealth that they have and not experiencing high levels of volatility. The people that can't understand Bitcoin to actually buy it or open up Coinbase to buy it. They have their old Schwab or Fidelity and they log into it once a year and they're more concerned about their retirement. You're trying to explain to them Bitcoin and why they should buy it, but they have a hard time figuring out the internet. And they're going to buy Bitcoin because now it's an ETF, right? Okay. No. Well, let's talk about smarter people. Sorry, boomers are still smart. They built this economy that we live in. They're just out of touch. They don't get it anymore. That's okay. You too. I know you young people think that you're going to be, spry. Your brain's going to be working on all cylinders for the rest of your life because that's how you feel right now. But believe it or not, uh, there's a reason why every single older person doesn't seem to get it. And that's because that's what human beings do as they get older. They get set in their ways. They're not able to take in new information as quickly as you are with your still developing brain. And you too will get old. So don't be so mean about it. I'm just doing it as a joke to make a point. Because now I'm turning into a boomer. The halvening is the next reason that people talk about Bitcoin going to go up. Well, the halvening is something that has happened before, and Bitcoin has gone up loosely in relation to it, but let's just talk about correlation versus causation. Does Bitcoin go up because of the halvening cycle, or does Bitcoin go up because it has been going up for the last 10 years? I think if you ask a statistician, can we look at these last 3 events in history and make a affirmative assumption that it is likely that the 4th event will also result in the same thing? They will tell you that you're about 27 data points away from something like that being statistically significant. And no, 3 times happening does not necessarily equal anything statistically significant. It's probably just correlation to Bitcoin going moon for the last 12 years. But again, go back to the question. The day after the ETF launches, what are people going to be looking at to the future to make the price go up? Why are they going to buy it? Hoping it'll go up. Well, it's just that. They'll hope it goes up. But there's no future news event that's actually going to be forward-looking and bought into. And a big recent example in the cryptocurrency space was with Dogecoin. We got to talk about Dogecoin. I know Bitcoin maxis hate it. But if you will recall, Dogecoin topped out on that Saturday night that Elon Musk was going to go on Saturday Night Live. Everyone was buying Doge. Everyone was looking at that event going to happen where Elon Musk was going to say to the moon, and apparently, again, the boomers that watch Saturday Night Live when it's actually live were going to be like, oh, wow, Elon said something. Let me go buy some of this dog coin that he's talking about. So what was after that Saturday to drive the price even higher? And so again, we go back to buy the rumors, sell the news that has existed since things have been traded. It's just a thing. And that's why, because people are buying it. People buy something expecting to make money. People buy something expecting the price to go up because in the future there's an event. So they're buying it in expectation of that future event. So once that event occurs, what is there left? And if that answer is nothing, then you know what you need to do. All right. Hedge fund managers will push it. Why? Why will institutions and hedge funds buy Bitcoin? I'm going to leave you to answer that question. Answer that for me. There's no wrong answer. I'm not going to criticize you. You tell me. Why are institutions and hedge funds going to buy Bitcoin? Maybe it's a reason I haven't heard. I know that's what a lot of people say on Twitter. They've been saying it for a very long time. I remember earlier when the Bitcoin was going down, a friend was telling me, well, this is institutions selling it to trick people so that they can buy it at a lower price. BlackRock, why would BlackRock, which has been very bearish against Bitcoin, suddenly become bullish for Bitcoin and want people to buy their ETF? Why would BlackRock want people to buy their ETF? Do you think that they make money every time somebody buys their ETF? Maybe they'll do that. Maybe they'll do I mean, that's the thing. It's so frustratingly cute to me that the Bitcoin maximalists who have based their entire worldview on this distrust of the banking sector are suddenly enamored by the fact that the largest financial institution in the world is going to start marketing Bitcoin. They're happy to make this bargain with their values so long as they become very, very personally wealthy. I mean, I'm not presuming that it's exit liquidity and it's sinister. I think the most logical explanation. Here's how what I go through with logic, and I'm going to start wrapping up here right here. But I think you always need to presume incompetence over malice, and you also need to assume, who stands to benefit and why when you read and listen to people's opinions. I don't think that. I think that there might be a case where there's people that bought it earlier this year and they're looking to take some profit. Absolutely. During the big run up, I remember very specifically J.P. Morgan releasing something on their press releases, talking about how something Bitcoin, and within there, I knew that there was some trader at J.P. Morgan that went to his boss and said, "Hey, we need to buy this Bitcoin stuff," and this guy was like, "Okay, fine, it's your book," and he said, "Well, the only thing I need for J.P. Morgan to do is go to their marketing department and just release a press release just with Bitcoin in the title, and then we'll make money." It's a great way. So yeah, there's all kinds of people using it for that purpose. But I think the most logical example is that BlackRock, should they get the ETF, they're going to earn commissions. I don't think they care about Bitcoin beyond that. I really don't. There's no one at BlackRock that's sitting there like, this whole financial system that makes us the largest and most successful institution in the world, it's all bogus. It's all bogus. Let's actually start buying into this Bitcoin, which is going to essentially, if they say is what they say is correct, remove all power from us and make us obsolete. We really need to believe in this. No, they want the commissions. They want to make money on whatever people want to believe. They're going to make their profits, and that's all there is to them. That's all it is. That's all it is. So, good luck out there. Thanks for joining me, guys. Oh yeah, to control the price. I mean, yeah, that's another thing too. All right. Thanks, guys, for joining me. I'll be back next week on Friday. Have a good weekend. Pray wisely. Again, I will never ask you for money. I will never direct message you and ask you for money. And much to the chagrin of my manager, I probably won't charge for it in any other way either. We'll see. Thanks, guys. See you next week.